Welcome back. I told you our topic of discussion tonight is the impact of 16 VAT on fuel and what this is likely to do to our economy. Joining me in studio is Miss Everlyn Lusenaka. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Agrochemicals Association of Kenya. Thank you so very much, Evelyn, for joining us here. And next to Evelyn, we have James Mureu. He's the Vice Chair of Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industries. First of all, I want to hear from you, Lusenaka. What damage are we likely to see out of these fuel prices?
I'm going to speak from the point of view of agriculture because that's my forte and that's my sector. Mm-hmm. We are going to see a big mess in the agriculture industry because we rely on fuel and for getting our inputs and also for sending our produce out. So for us, expect basically the cost of food, the cost of living to just go up. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, we have seen, the cost of pesticides, the cost of feedstock going up by between 11 and 16%. How did this happen? Bearing in mind that we are only 6 days into the new prices.
First of all, I would like to clarify that the taxation in the farm inputs, especially the pesticides, the 16% VAT, came in through the Tax Amendment Act 2018, where the pesticides which were originally zero rated are now taxable 16%. And for us to really understand how this is a big impact to us as a country, we need to understand agriculture. And agriculture is our key income earner in this country. GDP of 26%, or even higher. We are looking at livelihoods of the people. 80% of this population relies on agriculture, especially the rural. Mm-hmm. And also we need to know that our farmers are resource-poor farmers, very poor farmers. What we have done is we have loaded as an extra 16%, but it's not even just 16%. When we look at the supply chain for pesticides, we start from the manufacturer, distributor, then stockist and the farmer. Each person in this chain is going to add 16%. And that 16%, when we go down until we reach the farmer, we are looking at over 48% of the actual cost of the product we have loaded again to the farmer. Mm-hmm. Now this farmer barely makes even 16% margins, and now we have added another 48%. This we are compounding with now the increase in cost in the fuel, 16% fuel VAT that has come in. Because now our manufacturers have to transport these chemicals. The 16% means they have to increase the cost. So we are really looking at a situation where we have really killed our farmers.
James, I want to hear from you. Why are we acting all of a sudden as if this law just dropped from heaven when we know for sure that it has been pending since 2013?
I think, O'Brien, mine is really, first of all, to say how disappointed we are as business leaders. For a long time, this government has taken the business community for granted. And that's why such surprises just come. There's no proper mechanism of safeguarding the business person in this whole equation. If you look at waking up to say that suddenly the fuel prices have gone up by 16%, nobody sat to think, and I wonder whether they really even know the cost of fuel. And I challenge any of these government officials who go into a GK that is fueled by the taxpayer, and they have no clue about the implication of such a decision. The spiral effect is going to be phenomenal. If you look at the cost of fuel, it has a role to play in virtually everything that we do. Whether it is what Everlyn is talking about, agrochemicals, whether it is transporting finished goods to the retailers, whether it is the manufacturers transporting their raw materials, their cost is phenomenal. Now, a sensitive government to its subject must bear in mind that. If you look at what has happened in the last 4 days, not only has that price increase brought about a lot of other uncalled for instability, like we have now fuel shortage. And it is actually going against the expectations of normal economic practices, where with a price increase like that, one would expect that there'll be adequate supplies. But look at the reaction. Now there is fuel shortage, something I've not witnessed in a long, long while.
But we all know that the shortage has not been caused by shortage of fuel in the country. We know that truckers have refused to transport.
They have refused to think
fuel,
because they will not get a price increase themselves overnight. But the cost of transporting, if they take a truck from here to Webuye, it costs them a lot more. There is no time for even them to figure out that. But for me, that's not even the big problem, O'Brien. The big problem is, it is very easy for the government to say, let's increase taxes because we have a debt. How did we get into this debt? I have been in the public media saying that the government debt is growing too big and we need to manage it. So we are in this problem, and the solution, the quickest solution is increase taxes. But for how long?
In your opinion, this is some sort of a knee-jerk reaction.
It is a knee-jerk reaction.
I'm coming back to that issue of debt because that is the elephant in the room and how we're going to deal with it. But I want to hear from you, Everlyn. I mean, the proposal, to impose VAT on fuel products, was a decision that was arrived at back in the year 2011 when President Uhuru Kenyatta was the then finance minister and the deputy prime minister. And he was still the finance minister, right? Why are we now lamenting about this?
You see, and even we were discussing with Mr. Mureu here that really, even the fact that we are saying we postpone it for the next 2 years, we're still postponing problems. Years back, it was proposed. We said, let's postpone it for 3 years. Again, it came, let's postpone it for 2 years. It's here now with us. We're saying again, let's postpone this.
Get rid of it.
Why are we postponing? Why can't we just get rid of it, or let's sit down and think what is the way forward? We are just postponing a problem 2 years from now, which will still be the same thing that we're having right now. So I think let's get rid of it. Let's look for ways in which we as a country can earn the revenue that we are looking for instead of postponing a problem that is there. I don't think this maybe debt that is there right now will be finished in 2 years' time. It will still be there. So are you going to still come back to the same taxation that we're talking about? So I think...
So by seeking to push it forward, we are pushing
a problem.
We are just postponing a problem, yes.
So in your own opinion, James, this is something that we should do away with.
Let me tell you, O'Brien, there are many ways of skinning a cat. And I can tell you, the first thing that we need to fix is the irresponsible way that we are running this government. There are many bad things that are going on, especially spending recklessly. We see very many unnecessary trips, whether it is from the county governments or from the national governments, they're spending. If they stopped spending, we would not be in this hole. But right now, if you look, they're asking us to continue to finance their lifestyles. If you look at the government right now, it's bloated. It is too big. There are too many people who are doing so little towards that. And my opinion is they should, first of all, tell us, before we can even talk about these taxes, is what austerity measures have they taken as a government? What are they giving in this equation to be able to deal with the debt? They got into this debt from the Treasury. They got into this debt. We've talked about this debt. They're living beyond their means. That's the truth. And it's time to address this and address it with some austerity measures, starting from the top. The president and the deputy president and the government must now start addressing this issue with some seriousness.
So I mean, yes. James,
yes.
I mean, you belong to the private sector and, of course, the business community. And we know that you've been having a lot of discussions, and especially with the presidential roundtable conversation with the president. Have you been telling him about what is happening?
Can I tell you openly? I've not been to the presidential roundtable meetings.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not. I've not been to any of them, and it's deliberate because a lot of times I find the people who are around the president are not sincere. They don't tell him the truth. He needs to hear the truth, and the truth is people are hurting. The truth is he needs to do something. The people who go around him tell him only the nice things. They never want to tell him that the people out here are suffering. Such a price increase should have been flagged a long time ago. Such a VAT increase should have been flagged a long time ago before it is announced. Put cautionary measures. If you look at a country, and I've just been listening to a clip by the president of Ghana, saying he is actually lowering and removing taxes to encourage manufacturing. And when people have manufactured and they've made money, it is very easy for them to pay taxes. Now, what we are saying is continue paying taxes. There are people in this country who the government owes money and who are being closed down because of non-payment of government taxes. How can I invoice the government? The government doesn't pay me, and they expect me to pay the tax.
Lusenaka,
it is grossly unfair.
Yeah, I would also like to say that we are talking about the Big Four agenda. We're talking about manufacturing, we're talking about food security, we're talking about universal health and housing. How are we going to achieve this Big Four agenda if we are going to tax the citizens? We are going to tax the producers. We are going to tax the farmers. These farmers that we are relying on because they're the ones who increase the revenue of this country. We are taxing them even more. Yet, we want to achieve food security. They're not able to access these inputs. They cannot be able to produce. We are talking about universal health. If you cannot feed your people, how do you expect to achieve universal health? Manufacturing, if you cannot do production, how do we manufacture? So when we talk about this Big Four agenda, and yet what we are doing is not leading to us achieving this Big Four agenda through taxation, through penalizing actually the industry, then we are not even serious about that.
Tell me this. I mean, I'm coming to you, but are we finding ourselves in some sort of double jeopardy kind of a situation? Because on the 1st of August, we saw the Energy Regulatory Commission, I mean, adjusting the fuel, the cost of electricity in this country. And of course, we know some of the biggest losers were small time users, not small time users, but SMEs.
Yes.
And then again, on the 1st of September, fuel cost, going up again. Treasury talks about targeting to raise about 75 to 79 billion shillings out of these. I mean, is this a short-sighted move?
It is short-sighted because where we are looking at, we should be creating an enabling environment for the business community to do business so that the government can be able to generate the revenue that they want. But what we are doing is we are not creating that enabling environment for business. Businesses are closing. People are moving. If I talk about the agriculture sector, for example, big farms that were really big in this, they're big world over and were producing here in Naivasha, have moved to Ethiopia.
Yeah.
They've moved to Rwanda.
Yes.
They're moving to other countries because the cost of production in Kenya is unbearable. So why aren't we creating a better environment for people to thrive, for business to thrive, so that we can be able to even generate this revenue that we're looking at? What we are doing is actually short-sighted because with this taxation, as I've said, businesses are moving out of Kenya. We are not going to get the income that we really want. So we need to think about this as policymakers. Treasury needs to think about that as they make the proposal to Parliament and to the President. They need to think long-term, not short-term, because this taxation is just here.
On Monday, I was talking to the chair of Vision 2030 Delivery Board, Dr. James Mwangi, and actually he said something very interesting, that Kenyans asked for free primary education, free secondary education, free maternity, improved health care, improved security. They had to foot the bill, and so we must get ready to pay for this. Do you agree with him, James?
Can I ask you?
He's called actually James, like
yeah, it's called James.
It's your namesake.
And I'm sorry, he might be watching, but I don't even think James knows the cost of a liter of fuel.
Are you kidding me?
I wouldn't think so.
He lives in Nairobi.
Yeah, but his cars are fueled somewhere else. He doesn't know. You know, Brian, I'll tell you what, and this is the truth. The government is looking to raise 70 billion Kenya shillings or thereabout. If they owe the private sector 220 billion, 30% of that is supposed to be paid back to them as corporate tax. Then they should just, the most decent thing they can do is pay their debts. The government owes its subjects. They just need to pay their debts and quisha. We don't need any other incentives as business community or what they are looking elsewhere. They just need to pay their debts and collect the money back, 70 billion, and that's it. But you see, for a long time, again, I'll tell you, O'Brien, if you don't know the pain of eating with your hands, you will never appreciate the use of a spoon. This government eats with a spoon. We, the subjects, are eating with our hands. And the ugali is burning, and they are saying, why are we not eating in a hurry? If you look at the way I would paraphrase the situation we are in, is we, the taxpayers, have been religiously paying tax to the government. Somebody in this government is consuming that tax recklessly. And let me just put this home. That consumption is suspect because you cannot be consuming more than you have. In Ghana, they are looking at reducing taxation and increasing production. As we are removing production and looking at increasing taxation.
James,
it's
still mean this, because at the end of the day, we must come up with a solution.
Yes.
We are not running away from this country.
Yes.
We are part of this country, and all we want is a great future for this nation.
Yes.
How should we get out of this?
I'll tell you, simple. Let the government pay debts. Let the government pay the private sector. We continue producing. The government continues taxing us. Right now, what we're having is where businesses are closing down. And this situation will even get worse now with this VAT introduction. Let me just finish the story. If you find that your goats, you have some goats there, and they are reducing every day, and you can't tell what is consumed, there is a hyena inside there that is eating your goats, or a fox inside there pretending to be a... We must identify who is this fox in the government that is consuming everything we are producing. Because it's not like Kenyans are not working. It's not like we are not producing enough. But there is reckless spending. There is corruption that is being played around with like this with soft gloves.
Well, but we know for sure that the Office of the Deputy of Director of Public Prosecution has actually upped the game.
Let me tell you, Brian, and I want to be radical about this. If this government is serious, they should legislate that if you're caught in a corruption case, first of all, it should not be bailable because they use the same corruption money to buy their way out to freedom. So once you are implicated, until the case is heard, and there should be a special expeditious case. O'Brien, you're caught tomorrow, in the afternoon you're in court, next day your case is heard, and the third day you are jailed or released. There is no money like this.
Our members of parliament are
they should do that.
They are the one who
because
I want to hear from you, from where you sit. How best should we get out of this mess that we are in?
As I've said, and as Mr. Mureu has said, we need to, and I keep insisting, that we need to create a good environment for business to thrive. We need to develop infrastructure. We need to develop markets. We need to develop everything that will help a business thrive in this country. For example, if we look at agriculture, for example, our farmers, last year, they had bumper harvest of maize. We brought in maize from another country. So our farmers are now left with maize in their stores. They don't know what to do with the maize. We have not created a market for them. Right now, in fact, I was telling somebody it's easy to buy maize than to plant maize. Just go buy from somebody, and you don't need to plant maize because the cost of producing that maize is too high. Just go buy. And so we have basically not created that environment. We need the right infrastructure. We need the right communication system. We don't have infrastructure. Our roads are impassable. People who produce really deep in the rural areas cannot get to the market because they cannot reach. So if we create all this and everything is in the right position, like the markets are okay, the infrastructure is okay, we will not even be sitting here complaining about it.
So what I'm actually getting from you is that well, of course, doing away with the VAT on fuel is one thing, but it's not a panacea, to all the challenges that farmers are facing.
The farmers are facing very many challenges, but what we are saying is, and they have been facing challenges. We have had drought coming, we have had floods coming, we have had new pests are coming in because of climate change. Farmers are facing all those challenges, but they are hanging in there. They're hanging in there. They don't need the government to compound their problems further by taxing them.
By taxing them.
Yes.
James, I want to hear from you. What is your bet? Do you think the president is going to assent to this bill? Or?
O'Brien, whether he accents it or not, the truth is we've got to deal with this monster. It is a problem that was brought about by IMF. It is a problem that only Treasury knows how we got into this debt position that we are not able to deal with. But I can tell you the quick fix. Get all these guzzlers out of the way. President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he was finance minister, removed all the guzzlers and brought in 1800cc vehicles for all the government thingy.
Yeah.
They still went round and all the guzzlers are back. I can tell you what the president needs to do from tomorrow. Withdraw all these government vehicles and tell everyone to drive their own car. Go buy your own car, drive yourself to work and fuel yourself and take your car to the garage. And if you want to go for a government assignment to Kisumu, we will pay you your mileage. And that's what Rwanda does. Their ministers are not driven around, they drive themselves to work.
Oh.
They feel the pinch, so that when something like this is up for discussion, really what we are saying is the government itself is the first to defend and say, no, let's look for ways around this problem. But right now, whether we increase or not, these guys will just send their drivers to fuel their vehicles.
Tell me this,
They'll fuel
how
the
should
vehicles.
Parliament help in this whole issue?
Well, they are trying to push the problem. They are the ones who, first of all, discuss this without probably the involvement of the business community. And by the way, a lot of these decisions are made and they plan for money that is in my pocket. The money that I'm working to produce day and night, they are planning how they're going to use it without consulting me. And that, to me, is really what is hurting this country, that there is no due consultation or consideration of the fact that we are the ones who are producing and working for this nation, a small business community that produces and works so hard. But the government spends without caring. And that, to me, is the big question. How can the government show its concern for this problem? They must drop some of these luxury lifestyles.
Lusenaka, what do you want to say?
I would just like to say that when this VAT issue started, we have engaged Parliament a lot, both the different committees that are the relevant committees. And one of the things that we have noted that is that some of these decisions are made at the House, in Parliament, without due regard from advice from Treasury, from the people who understand this. So when we have some of our parliamentarians really do not understand what the impact is. They do not understand taxation. Yes. They don't understand where we are going, long-term effects of all the impact. So when we engage them, when we find that even they're shocked at the impact of their decision. So we need for our parliamentarians to understand, and even Treasury, because even when we go to Treasury and talk about some of these issues, they send you back to Parliament. And Parliament now are really at a loss of whatever the decision they've made. So some of these decisions should not be actually pegged. Parliament should not be political. They should be made when we have really studied the situation by technocrats, people who understand.
And
business people. Involve the business community, involve the industry before we make such a decision.
Tell me this.
Yes.
Let's paint a scenario whereby, this law has been repealed. What's next?
He can start with the fuel, but ours, the tax for the pesticides was already assented to by the president on 18th July. There's nothing we can do until 6 months are over. That's the law. And we really, really are hoping and appealing to the president, and because we have tried all three arms of government. We have gone to Parliament, we have gone to the courts, now we are really appealing to the executive, that's the president, that this decision, we believe, he was not informed. He was not even aware when he was assenting to this, that he really needs to look at it, because his people are suffering. It's his people, it's his electorates, the people who voted for him, they're suffering. And so he needs to reconsider this decision and take us back to zero rating.
Very well. James, as we wind up.
You know, the truth is, O'Brien, unless the government ring fences some of this, like what she's talking about, agriculture is such an important player in our economy. You cannot just afford to throw taxes at it, because really you're killing the goose that lays the golden egg. We must ring fence. If you are saying we increase the cost of imported goods into this country, I'll be very happy. that's not a problem. But even the local producers, if we are saying let's zero rate, for example, machinery that is going to help the Juakali in Kikomba to make competitive products out there, or zero rate raw materials that will go into production, or continue encourage the cotton growing industry so that we can start winning our own fabric, so that we produce cheaper goods and get rid of all these other second-hand clothes that are produced in Kenya, used in another country and returned to Kenya. That is when you will have sustainable growth. For now, increasing taxes and ignoring production is doing it at their own peril. They can do that. It's a temporary measure that has not gone down well, and I think it's time for the government to read the mood of its subject. It's not a very pleasant thing that we're going through.
Good. Thank you so very much indeed for joining us here. And of course, let's hope that and pray that we are going to have a rational discussion on issues.
Now pray is that the president is actually going to turn this down, and let's redraw the whole plan so that we're able to navigate this. It's a very difficult time for the business community, especially coming from a very tough election year last year. Again, thanks to the politicians. They put us, it has never been that bad, and we haven't even come out of this, and we are into another ditch.
Very well. Yeah. Let's hope that we get out of this and we forge forward together as a nation.
Thank you.
Everlyn Lusenaka, she's the CEO of Agrochemical Association of Kenya, and James Mureu is the Vice Chair of Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industries, joining us here in studio to help us understand what is the way forward on the fiasco that is surrounding the 16% VAT on fuel. And of course, you have heard it from them. Let's move on, where urban centers have been the cradle of modern housing when it comes to investment, design and splendor. But what that is slowly changing as rural Kenya comes of age, helped by the economic boom in the county.